What is up YouTube? It is Prod Rara coming back with another YouTube video. In today's tutorial, I'm going to be breaking down a couple chord progressions, like strategies that I use for coming up with chord progressions, and kind of how you can utilize them and make them so that you have unique chord progressions, and yeah, just a couple strategies. With all that being said, let's get right into the video. Alright, so currently I have loaded up a piano in Keyscape, but you can use any piano, and we are going to be using the A minor key, which is just all of the white notes, just to make it simple. And starting out with any chord progression, you're going to be building an A minor triad or just a minor triad, and we're doing it in a minor key because it's just going to be a little bit more dark, which is what you're probably going to be going for if you're doing that West Coast style. So especially those sack beats. So to build an A minor triad, we're going to skip one white note, go to the next one, skip one white note, go to the next one. And then the first pattern that we're going to be doing is taking this triad, just sounds like this, right? And we're going to be copying that over and going up 5 semitones. So on the keyboard, it's Option up arrow. Boom, just like that. And then right now it sounds like this. It sounds alright, doesn't sound crazy or anything. So what we're gonna do is another trick, which is voicing, where we take certain notes and we just shift the octave. And essentially this was still playing an A up here, like that's still playing an A, but we're not changing the actual note, just changing the octave. And I like to have, when I'm just building these root chord progressions, like just the little triads, I tend to like to have them more compacted as opposed to having them like spread out more. So when we just compact it and bring that down an octave, now it sounds like this. And you can just repeat that just to get like a little, you feel me, a little bounce. And right, like off rip, that's actually kind of cool, you know what I mean? You could use that in like some Detroit shit if you're just trying to keep it simple. This one, what is that, a D minor chord, resolves really nicely to that A minor. So you could literally just keep that, but if you want to spice it up a little, there are 2 tricks that I do that work pretty reliably. First up, I take the root note of both of the chords, so that would be the A, and it's not the bottom note, but the root note. So this is, like I said, this is a D minor chord. So we're gonna be taking that A note and that D note and dropping them down an octave. And then we're just gonna copy it over. And this just adds a little more depth. It makes it a little more dark. So let me show you what we got with that. Another thing that I do, another trick, is taking the bottom 2 notes, not just the root note, but the bottom 2 notes of both of the triads and copying them up an octave. So let me show you what that does. And this one, it's a really reliable trick. And what I mean by that is it will keep the same vibe as the chord, as what you have. It won't be like adding random notes that kind of change the vibe and make it sound a little different. This, it's just adding more depth to it, making it sound more elaborate without really doing anything crazy. So you take these notes, boom, up an octave, and now let's copy those over, and we got this. Right, so that's pretty cool. That's the first little trick that I got. It is just simply taking, I mean, even if I were to bring this down 5 notes, it'd basically be the same chord, just this one would be that one, you feel me? So it's basically, it's pretty simple, nothing super crazy. But for the next one, what we're gonna do is we are going to go all the way back to this triad that we have right here, and we're gonna build off of that for the next pattern. And what we're gonna do is, so on top of just transposing it up 5 notes, transposing that A minor up, you can also go, if we take it over here, you can go up 7 notes, and that will be also, as you can see, it's all white notes, so it's still in the same key. All right, so basically, once we have this E minor, we are going to transpose this top note down so that they're more close in terms of pitch. And right now, off of this, we just have this. So you feel me? It has a little more movement. It's a little more elaborate. It's now 3 chords. And then the best chord that you can possibly do that works 100% of the time, and it's really cool, I'll show you in a second, because it ties to the first chord. So it really like creates a full loop feeling, and it's like it builds so much tension and just drops right into that one. Is you take that same, this is an E minor chord, boom. So you just take that same chord that you got by taking this A minor, bringing it up 7 notes, and you copy it over, right? So it's just that E minor, and you bring this middle note up by 1. So that is now an E major chord. And you may be thinking, I thought you said that this key is all white notes, so what is that G sharp doing there? You'd be right, that G sharp is not part of the A minor key, and this is something I'll dive into in a future video. It's called borrowed chords. You gotta be careful with the chords that you borrow. It's just taking a note from a separate key or taking a chord from a separate key, and it's very hit or miss. But this specific one, taking that root chord, bringing it up 7 and raising that middle note up 1, that will always work, guaranteed. And let me show you, if you voice these down an octave, this is what it sounds like here. Right, so just if you hear that last note, these two you can kind of fill in with anything, but if you hear that last one, right, like that's what your brain wants to hear. That's what I mean by it resolves hella well. So up next, what you can do too is, if this, so this is an E major chord, another trick you can do is take this, before having this E major hit, you can have a F major hit. So just go up one little semitone. Matter of fact, move all of these notes up one semitone. So boom, boom, and boom. And just hearing these play, you can tell that they sound really well together. Right, but then if you copy that down an octave like that, right, so that just kind of like, it just keeps the vibe going a lot. And so you can mess around with kind of all these tricks that I've showed you thus far. Right now, this chord is just the root going up 5. You can make this one the one that goes up 7, right? So you can go boom, 1, 2, 3, right? And then now you have an E minor and an E major playing, so it'll go like this. You can make this the one that goes up 5. You take that, voice it down an octave, and then, yeah, I mean, you can just basically with this, with what I just told you, if you just cycle through those and voice it differently, you can use the trick where you take the root note, which I'll do in a second, or where you take the bottom 2 of the chords and bring it up, blah, blah. With all that variation, like, you can come up with infinite chord progressions. It's actually ridiculous. So that's like my favorite thing, is basically, this is my fucking go-to chord progression, is getting that last major chord that drops into the minor chord, and then basically just filling these 2 middle chords with anything that, you feel me, works. It's within the key, that kind of goes well. So yeah, that's kind of what I like doing best. But let me show you with the 2 tricks we learned earlier how that sounds. So you grab that A from the root, then that E, then that D, and then that E again. You drop those all down an octave, and it sounds like this. Boom. And then if that's not good enough for you, feel me, you take those 2 and bring those up an octave. And then this is what we got. Right, so it's unique, and if you want to make it even more unique, you can take out certain notes that you don't like. I find it easier to come up with this whole chord progression and then go in and take out notes that you hear kind of sound funky, as opposed to just starting with that triad and building random notes that you think will sound good. I find this a lot easier of a method, so I definitely recommend it. And then last but not least, we're gonna go all the way back to that first minor triad for the last pattern. Here, boom, delete all those. Repeat this over and drop this middle note down 1. So it's a B instead of a C. And then we're gonna repeat this over, and we have this. And you might be thinking that sounds a little funky. It does sound funky, but the funkiness works. Like, I'm telling you, basically the fact that these notes are right next to each other, like, it's, you know, if you have been doing this music production for a while, you know that you should not generally have notes hitting just a semitone apart like this. It just kind of tends to sound a little weird. So you may be thinking, why am I doing that then? Right, but the tension that it creates, like the awkward kind of sound that it creates, it sounds kind of dark, and then it resolves really well into that first chord. So you can literally just have this chord progression repeating throughout the whole thing. You feel me? Like it goes really well into that first chord. So I like that progression a lot for the kind of like darker sax Stockton stuff, or even like some Du Bois stuff. shit goes crazy. And the last tip I can give you that is perfect for using this specific chord progression, but you can do it with any, I highly recommend doing it with any chord progression to make it a little more spicy, is adjusting the placement of the chords. So for example, if you think about these chords in terms of having drums on them, there's the third kick in the 3 count. There's going to be the first kick at the 1, then it's going to be the second kick here, the clap here, and then the third kick right here. So you can have that second chord hitting on the third kick like this. Boom. Right, so that kind of just already has like that offbeat bounce, you know what I mean? And you can even make a second chord here of the same chord, and because this chord with the little B note drops or resolves hella well into that original A minor chord, it doesn't matter if you play it 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Like, you can play it however many times you want, as long as you don't change up the chord in between. You just drop it right back into that A minor to resolve. So let me show you what I mean. Just having that same chord, I could do it like 2, 3, 4 times, but just for the video's sake, let me show you how it sounds with one extra play of that chord. You feel me? So you can just repeat that. Like, that's already hard. That's so hard. If you do those tricks that I told you about taking that root note and bringing those bottom two up, it doesn't work as well for this, but it still will work. You feel me? Like, this, honestly, right here, this is hard off for it. Like, you can just use this. And the reason that this works so well is because if you turn on the metronome, your brain wants it to hit right here, right here, right here, and right here. And you can tell that the chords are not hitting. They're hitting on the 1, but the other 2 chords are not hitting on those points where your brain wants to hit. Like, if I show you here, let me play with the metronome. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I like that a lot. I think that just creates a little bit more bounce to it. With that being said, the only other thing I can think of is just once you have your chord progression, pitch it up. You know what I mean? We stayed in A minor because that's where all the white keys are. You can make the melody here if it's easier for you. And then generally, I feel like the darker keys, if you're really going for that dark vibe, are kind of C minor to maybe like F minor. So let's see how C minor sounds. Just go 1, up 3, boom. And then we have this. It's like a completely different vibe. We can go up 1 more too. C sharp minor. You know what I mean? We can keep going. D minor. Right, that's kind of the range you want to stay in, but you feel me? You can get completely different vibes just from taking the whole chord progression, moving it up a couple notes. So keep that in mind when you're trying to get some variation or some differentiation between your chords and your chord progressions. There's just so many different tips and tricks. And with that being said, honestly, this is all I can think of for how I make my chord progression. So if this is helpful for you, I know this music theory, I'm not really getting into how all this works, but I'm just showing you like the sauce, you know what I mean? What you need to know to get that variation. And so if this has helped you, because I know that this has helped me, please, you feel me, drop a like, drop a comment, subscribe, all that, because I've been putting hella work into these videos, and you know, I want to keep putting in more work, and I want to keep getting that motivation, and all the support really helps. So again, if this has helped you out at all, let me know in the comments what other videos you want to see, and with all that out of the way, I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.